What is going on, Hive Warriors? So this is a question that I always answer every year because the way science works, the way studies work, I'm always answering this question in a way where I'm updating the video or reassuring you that the video from previous years or the year before is still up to date. The infamous question that I get asked a lot, like probably one of the biggest questions ever in terms of consistency throughout the course of, I don't know how many years of it, since 2016, was or is still, when does fat burning start when intermittent fasting? Now, let's twofold this question a little bit because I know people want to get a different perspective from this question, right? It's not always exactly the scientific information or just the individual daily biological process of it. There's also the overall overarching, when do I lose the weight that I want to lose? So, to answer the scientific portion of it, it is still 8 to 12 hours every time you fast for the fat burning, for the calorie partitioning, and for the body fat to be used as fuel to be turned into ketones through the process of beta hydroxybutyrate via the liver. That takes 8 to 12 hours. Now, to get it closer to 8 hours and further from 12 hours, you have to become more and more fat adapted. Now, how do you become more and more fat adapted? You basically continue to do intermittent fasting. The longer you do it, the more fat adapted you become. So it's actually working in your favor and you're becoming more proficient at it. Contrary to what people say, oh no, it feels easy, that means my body is used to it. No, when it feels easy, that means your body has adapted to doing that and you've become more fat adapted. Therefore, you can actually switch over much quicker because of your fat adaptation. Your body is adapted to switching over to fat and using that as fuel more efficiently. So instead of, for example, if you were 12 hours, now it will take you 8 hours. And what do I mean by that? For example, if you stop eating at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, it will take up to 12 o'clock again, midnight, or 12 o'clock midnight, for you to start the post-absorptive range. So you're in the range where you have no more, you're not absorbing any of the foods that you've eaten. That's done, right? All the nutrients, all the body fat storing from it, all the glycogen storing, that's done. You are now in a post-absorptive range, and what ends up happening is a metabolic switch over. And this was coined by Dr. Stephen Anton, a person who I've communicated with many times regarding this. One of the leading experts in terms of studies that have been done on intermittent fasting. He has over 78 studies on intermittent fasting. You do a metabolic switchover, and at this point, you're not only not using any of the energy stores, glycogen and stuff from previous meals, you're also using body fat predominantly to fuel your body, since there isn't any glycogen that has also been depleted in the post-absorptive range. But as I said, if you're not that fat adapted, it could take up to 12 hours. So you can actually be from 12 in the afternoon to up to 12 at night, midnight, and then obviously you'll go to sleep, and all those hours will count towards burning. So you'll be basically burning around the time when you're sleeping. But if you do it more and more, contrary to what a lot of people like to tell you out there, They use studies that trick you. Like, oh, if you actually, I've seen a study where people did fasting for 5 days, and they actually, their cortisol went up and they didn't lose as much or whatever. And then you'll think that study means that people did intermittent fasting for 5 days, but it's actually a 5-day fast where the cortisol went up because they fasted for 5 consecutive days without breaking it. It's very misleading. That's why it's important to actually look at the studies. Contrary to what people tell you, you become better at doing it better by doing it more, by doing it consistently. And then you could get to 8 hours, hopefully, eventually, if you use a lumen. I always tell you guys to use a lumen because those times change. I always tell you guys to use a lumen. You could kind of figure out, my lumen's right here. You can kind of figure out when, and link is down in the description if you want to get your own, with a discount is down in the description. If you're constantly fluctuating, if you're lowering your time, if you're extending your time, the lumen will tell you when you're actually finally burning body fat. If you want to use it, it's basically a respiratory exchange ratio portable device that you can use. So there it is. It's not changed. It's been like this, I think, for 3 years. This has been the updated data, has been the data that we still have. Nothing has shown anything to be different to the 8 to 12 hours, with the understanding that people who are more fat adapted are closer to 8 than they are to 12. People who are less fat adapted, closer to 12 than they are to 8. Now, when do you start seeing results? If you've not ever done intermittent fasting, you will probably see results immediately on the scale, in the sense of within a week, you may lose a certain amount of weight that you've not lost in a while within that short amount of time, right? One thing that I notice when people do it is like, oh my God, my first week was insane. Usually this is because a lot of water is being released. A lot of glycogen is being depleted, which contains water, right? It's glycogen. And that also lends to the scale changes. I don't want you to get discouraged if you don't see the same weight on the scale be lost the following week, or the week after that, or the week after that, because remember, a lot of that was unrealistic in terms of fat loss. It was simply just weight loss, and weight loss doesn't always equal fat loss. So always keep that in mind. You might be losing weight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that weight number that you see on the scale is a 1-for-1 1-for-1 thing, 1-for-1 of your fats, essentially. So keep that in mind. Understand that burning fat is going to take time. Burning overall fat is going to take time, but by 2 months, 3 months, if you took a picture on your first day, you should definitely see a dramatic difference within 2 to 3 months. Always take pictures once a week and weigh yourself once a week so that you have a understanding of where you are. And then always go back. And then when you're 2 months in, check out your first picture that you took and compare it to your new picture. It keeps you accountable, keeps you doing it all the time and understanding where you're going and seeing progress. Because when you don't see progress, that's what could derail you. So if you take pictures and you do all this stuff, you can constantly see progress, and it will motivate you even more a month later, 2 months later. So that is my 2024 video. Happy New Year, by the way, of when does fat burning start when intermittent fasting. Hopefully this video helped you guys. And of course, as always, I'll see you in the next one.